attending a meeting at Dotto's home back in 1994. He welcomed us. We were a bunch of younglings then, and in fact, 5 years ago when I said, you know, we're thinking about re-engaging with the government and pursuing this MOA, and he scheduled a call, and the only thing he asked me was, I want to know if you're committed. So I have been committed. So with that, I'll turn over the microphone to Estella, and she can go ahead and call up her panel.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to bring forward Sean DePana, Regina Jacinto Mariento, and Michael Ignacio. And the title of this panel is New Markets, New Industries, and New Entrants. And before we do the introductions, I wanted to take a quick poll of the audience and wanted to find out how many people have been back to the Philippines at least once or twice 20 years ago? Everybody's been to the Philippines at least 20 years ago? 10 years ago? 5? 1? And recently. Good. So we have people who've kind of seen the trend in terms of the differences that they've seen over the past 20 years. So in front of me I have a lawyer, an entrepreneur in the semiconductor industry, and the government. So I would like to have each of you introduce yourself, and then we'll go into the discussion.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean DePana. I'm the president and CEO of the startup company, actually called Smart Probe Inc. What we do, we are basically a semiconductor interconnect manufacturer, and we cater to the semiconductor industry in the Philippines. I basically come from about over 25 years of experience in Silicon Valley, working in the high-tech industry, from anywhere from hardware to software, working with multinational companies. And when I saw the opportunity of this investing in a company in Philippines, I took a chance because I've been working in Asia Pacific region for over 25 years also. And I wasn't sure if this basically was the right market for us, but I realized most of the multinational companies in the semiconductor industry is really growing really rapidly in the Philippines, and they're putting a lot of infrastructure and investment in the Philippines. So with my company, which basically what we do, we cater to this niche market of semiconductor wafer testing. This is a great opportunity for me to being there and actually be engaged, as many of the panelists previously to me mentioned. I transplanted myself from Silicon Valley to live in the Philippines and be engaged and be involved in everyday operations of the manufacturing and services of this company. It's been very exciting for me. It's been very challenging, but I learned a lot. You know, being actually outside of Philippines running operation versus being inside is a two different world. So for me, it's been an amazing ride, and the best to be still ahead of me. And I'm very excited. The company has been great, and I have a lot to talk about, of course, but this is me right now.
Good morning. My name is Reggie Jacinto Barrientos. I'm a lawyer in the Philippines. I have a confession to make. I am going to talk about the Philippines, and I'm very, very passionate about the Philippines. That's my country. I live there. Okay. I just came from there a few hours ago. Okay. I have 20 years of practice of Philippine law. I basically have a niche in power, PPP, public-private partnership. We do a lot of microfinancing as well. And we do a lot of IT legal services. And I would like to share that experience with you. And if you have any other questions, I look forward to answering your questions later. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Ignacio. I'm the representative of the Philippine Department of Trade and Industry in Northwest US and Western Canada. And also, I head the commercial section of the Consulate General of the Philippines here in San Francisco. I'm your government person, as Stella has said, but I've only been in government for 6 years. I've actually came from the private sector, immediately before that, I was actually here in Silicon Valley. I was doing business development for a mobile telecommunications company. I was based here, but was traveling to Austin, Miami, and Mexico. And before that, I was working for a Spanish company, opening their markets in Asia and Europe. Before that, I was also in San Miguel Corporation. And my private sector background is more than my public sector background, but I'm very glad that I made the switch because I'm exactly doing the same thing. It's just that I help the country. So for every $1 million that passes through our office and helps set up in the Philippines for businesses, how many people get jobs? So that's really cool.
So we have a great combination of people here in front of you that'll talk about the Philippines and what's going on. I was there last year. I saw the energy and the vibe was very high in the areas that I was in, that there is a lot of development that's going on in the Philippines, similar to the early years of Silicon Valley, where all the agriculture was in San Jose, and now you have commercial buildings, and in the Philippines, sugar plantations are turning into industrial parks. So if you can just describe from your experience the energy and the vibrant energy and change that's going on in the Philippines and how you've experienced that.
Well, actually, from a technology standpoint of view, there is huge growth in terms of investment from startup companies and niche markets into the Philippines, where it reminds me of the Silicon Valley very much. You find that the areas of the interest in, let's say, semiconductor or basic software areas, there's a lot of companies who basically homegrown, organic from Philippines. Also, there are companies coming from overseas. And what's happening is that basically, traditionally, a lot of the companies used to have just satellite operations in Philippines. But what they're finding out now that their market's growing so rapidly, they're opening actually offices. One of the things that we're doing, for example, I actually have made my headquarters out of Philippines to reach out to the rest of the Asia Pacific region, as well as the local Philippine market, which is big, and just even cater to North America and Europe. The kind of technology that I have is traditionally you would have seen is in only Silicon Valley a few years ago and in Europe, but it's a very high-end technology. But because of Professor Dash has mentioned, the level of education and engineering that is right now coming out of the universities are very good. These guys have a lot of technology background in terms of academically, but experience is still not there. The talent pool quite not exactly like Silicon Valley, but with the proper management and training, these guys can be very, very competitive, and they can really learn quickly and implement, and they have ways to change things, and they do very little. As Councilor General said, with so little they can do so much. And I find that that area of growth is a great opportunity for us, and I'm looking forward because a lot of the major top-tier semiconductor companies now building up infrastructure in Philippines, and they are looking for local support, companies who can basically be there from the design to manufacturing processes, to basically reach out for a turnaround because they're very fast-paced. Now they cannot wait for somebody overseas to develop this kind of product and bring it to the Philippines. They want somebody localized, and I can see that our presence is a really big value add for this company.
I guess for me, my answer to the question on what is the energy about in the Philippines, I think just going to simplify it, two things. One is government. Government is actually doing a good change, and there's an element of trust involved because of the governance issues, transparency, and you actually, from my experience, we have a government or the agencies of government who are trying their very best to understand a situation, set a policy, and implement it. So the business sector gets to see that, and there is an element of trust from the investor's perspective. The second point I think that I'd like to raise why there is energy is because of the consumer market that we have. The population is very young. I think as pointed out by Consul General here, we have a very young population. Currently, the average population is 22. By the time we go to election in 2016, we are going to have an electorate, 60% of which is going to be 25 years old. We actually have going to be, and we have going to have an electorate that's going to elect a president for the next 3 years. That's going to be very, very young population. This same population is also encouraged to be educated. I'm saying encouraged to be educated because in the next 3 years, we're implementing a new educational system in the Philippines. We have a lot of private entities engaging our universities to develop the educational support for these young graduates. And we will see this change in the next 3 years, the next 6 years. So the energy is really coming from the population as well. These are also connected population. We have them holding mobile cellular phones that are that have information at their tips, and they're using it. So we see that change. There's a change in market. There's a change in opportunity, and I think that's where the investor community, the Filipino community, the foreign community gets to see it, and they want to take advantage of that.
So the vibrant change in the Philippines. Well, visually, every time I go home for meetings, for our annual planning sessions, the skyline seems to change. I get lost in that new section in Fort Bonifacio, and I'm practically, I spent maybe 15 years of my life in Manila. But on a more serious note, my job, I've been posted in 3 postings in my first term in government. So I was in Brussels for a year and a half. I was in London for 3 years, and then I'm here for about a year and a half. So that's my sell-by date is for my first posting. But I really noticed the change of the level of interest of companies. Whereas before, these companies wouldn't give us a time of day. Now we find them coming to us and asking questions that we've never even heard before. So what we did was, instead of, well, my predecessors in my corps of commercial diplomat school, the Foreign Trade Service Corps, they said that they had to knock practically every door of every businessman in the countries that they were posted. What I did when I arrived in Brussels and London, I put up websites, investphilippines.org.uk, and over here, investphilippines.org. Just put it out there, and the questions keep on coming. And that's a big change. And then another big change that Regina has mentioned is the vibrant private sector and how they're very much willing to help in the country's growth. Because when we first launched the public-private partnership program of the new president, our marching orders which promoted, and I think my colleagues in embassies and consuls, we overdid it, and we promoted it right away, and then only to find out when we sent a lot of them to the Philippines, like the big construction firms, mining firms, and everyone, they didn't find any projects ready yet at that time. But now I think we're ready, and these companies and technical expertise that come to the Philippines and sell their technology, they find themselves that they're not the main bidder because Philippine conglomerates in the private sector have already bid it. And what we do is we just business match them so they can supply to these conglomerates. Because really, in the Philippines alone, the private sector is playing a big role. And I think so.
Speaking of Fort Bonifacio, when I was there last year, I mean, if you look at the skyline and actually just stand there, you could be anywhere, feel like you're anywhere else, and not in the Philippines. You're in a metropolitan city in the U.S., and it's very nice. So my next question has to do with, as new companies come in, infrastructure is very important, in energy and transportation. What kinds of new things that are happening now to help support that and to even attract more companies